the 3rd of September 2025. It turned out a very good day after all the rain this morning, and I got a lot done. I tell you, I will sleep tonight. There is no idle minutes on a farm, let me tell you that. There's always something to be done. Graeme Linehan, Linehan. You don't hold true to names like Linehan. Linehan is probably old Linehan. It's a Gaelic name. When the young children came into British schools back in the Victorian era, or maybe in the 17th century, the teacher put down whatever was the nearest to the name he sounded like. So there may be several different spellings of the same name in English, but in Irish they'd all be the one. So anyway, it doesn't really matter. Graeme Linehan. He is the writer and creator of Father Ted. Father Ted, God be good to Dermot Morgan. He died aged 45. And Dougal Maguire, Father Dougal Maguire, Ardal O'Hanlon is still with us. And it was a great old sketch. It was a wee bit after my time. The comedy in it was a wee bit zany. It managed to poke fun at the clerics without actually attacking the church itself. It picked up the story of a priest, Father Ted Crilly, who had been banished to a west of Ireland island, Craggy Island, because there were financial questions. He said the money was resting in his account. Now, when it was discovered, it was resting in his account. And a half-wit priest called Father Dougal Maguire, and so the story went. If you know it, there's no point me telling you. There are replays of it there. It was terrible how Dermot passed away. He had a great sense of humour. Anyway, that's it. But Graeme Linehan is Irish citizen. He lives in America a lot of the time, and he comes and goes to Britain and Ireland. Don't know what he's at the moment. Someone might post underneath. Anyway, about last April, he posted on Twitter a post about if you're a woman and you go into a toilet, a female toilet, and you find a man there who's a transgender, shout and roar at them, call the police, and if they don't do anything, give them a kick in the you-know-whats. That's what he said. Oh, anyway. Funny enough, independently of this, he's some case coming up next week in which he's supposed to have insulted some transgender in Britain. Anyway, this post was done in America, on an American platform, Twitter, now X. Owned by Elon Musk, I presume. And I don't think it had any connection with Britain. But when he stepped off the plane yesterday in Heathrow Airport, there were 5 armed police around him. And he was arrested. And he's taken into custody, and he was questioned, and his blood pressure went through the roof, and they got worried about him that he was going to take a heart attack. So he's charged to some court or other with inciting violence. Now, we'll see how that goes. I heard today, folks, and this is all an evolving story, so don't be trying to catch me out. I'm doing the best I can, only after coming in from doing a great job. I heard today that the police chief constable for the area wrote to the Home Secretary. Is she Yvette Cooper or something? Or the Justice Secretary, asking her to clarify what the position was with these type of matters. Now, the first question, I'm a retired police officer, as I've told you already, 20 years retired, no, done with it completely. I have no connection with the Garda Síochána anymore. So anyway, why would they be questioning what the position is? Do they not know there's either law for an arrest or there isn't? Once or twice, I would have done 2,000 searches in my career for all types of things. From child pornography to stolen goods, you name it, all kinds of things, including copyright, because I used to be assigned to the InFact crowd when they'd be raiding places for videos and all this stuff. Now, if On one occasion in my career, I was directed by senior officers to search a house and a property. It was semi-industrial. And I was handed a warrant. And the warrant was signed by a judge and all, and I went and did it, even though I knew there was something I protested against. I said, what's in this is not true. And the owner of the house sort of knew me, and he gave me he was very, very disappointed that I searched him. He says, you know well, I didn't do anything. And I said, well, this warrant has nothing to do with me. I'm only here doing my job. So that was the story. That was the case. If you were asked to search somewhere, and the warrant was it was right, you had to search it. You had no say. But when it comes to arresting someone, it's a totally different matter. If there's a warrant in existence for an arrest, you can arrest on the warrant. As far as I understand in this case, there was no warrant issued. It's not very standard practice to issue a warrant. Most legislation gives a power to arrest without warrant, including common law. Police officer can arrest anyone whom he sees whom he suspects of committing treason, murder, or inflicting a dangerous wound, or who he sees committing some other offences, or is directly charged by another of murder or manslaughter, on reasonable grounds are reduced to support the charge. He can arrest without warrant. Now, in recent years, several laws have been passed to give the police powers to arrest without warrant. Drink driving is a very good example. Drugs Act is the same, a very good example as well. Now, so I think this was an arrest without warrant. Now, if they had gone to a magistrate looking for a warrant, the magistrate might well ask, where did this happen? And the question that comes to my mind is the jurisdiction. He'd done this tweet in America, on an American platform. So I think it was an arrest without warrant. And if it did, it begs the question, what business of the police in Britain was it? That's the American police's business. I don't think he named anyone. I don't think he said if it was in London. He just said generally what he'd recommend to do with transgenders in the female toilet. So the fact that the police commissioner, head Buckhat, wrote to the secretary, I heard this today, it was on GB News, asking to clarify, would indicate to me that there are questions as to what power of arrest the police officer had. I mean, if there is a plot or a conspiracy to paint the Stonehenge monument in Wiltshire red, and an American comes into Heathrow Airport with a bucket of paint and they think he's going to do it, well, there might be grounds to arrest there. Because once the crime is in Britain, it doesn't matter where the person comes from. But if there's a protected structure in Pennsylvania, which has a connection to some old ancient matter or some archaeological site or something, and is protected, then if somebody's out to damage it or do damage, you can't arrest them when they arrive into London. It's for the police in America to arrest. I'm beginning to suspect now, and you have to understand I'm acting as best I can, that this policeman had no power of arrest at all for an offence committed in the United States outside of the UK, just because the person happened to pass through the United Kingdom. It was talked about on GB News today that he may be in for a big claim, a huge claim. if it's a case that the police commissioner had to get the law clarified on arresting him, then there's another golden rule the police officer would have broken. You can be made do a search of a warrant issued by someone else, a judge or a chief superintendent of the guards, for certain explosives and stuff. But you can't be told to arrest someone. The law is clear. A member of the Garda Síochána, and it's the same in Britain, a police officer, may arrest any person without warrant whom he has reasonable grounds to suspect, whom he reasonably believes, or who he believes. So if a police officer believes a person going through the airport is carrying a firearm, big machine gun under his coat, and he has reasonable belief that's true, he can arrest him. Now, the first thing he could do is check him out. And if he feels a big machine gun underneath his coat, at that stage, he could arrest him. And that's genuine, reasonable belief. But that has to be present. And no senior officer can direct a junior officer to arrest anyone. It's the police officer himself or herself and must reasonably suspect, whatever the section says, who has reasonable grounds to believe. If this policeman was goaded into arresting Graeme Linehan by a senior officer, then he is in trouble. He acted beyond the law. That's the golden rule of police school. You must have your own power of arrest. You must have it. It doesn't matter if you're only out at the training school a week. Nobody can tell you, you arrest that person. You have to have the reasonable grounds to believe, and there has to be evidence to support what you're saying, and then you can arrest them. And a lot of the law in Ireland was amended to allow you to arrest witnesses who might have been implicated in a crime if you believe they were implicated, or they're in possession of information in relation to it. But the key to this is, it has to be in your own country. So this is what to watch for, folks. Now, it so happened that Nigel Farage was over in America, and I think he addressed the Houses of Congress or something, and he said that he only can get addressing the British Parliament once every 6 months because he has only a certain number of MPs. Imagine he could address the British House of Congress, and he couldn't, the House of Representatives, I think it is, and he couldn't address the House of Commons. And he's an MP. So he asked for sanctions to be placed on Starmer for taking away the free speech of the people in Britain. Trade sanctions to punish Starmer and get him to stop this arresting and harassing people and the Fine Gael and all of these. Right? So Starmer is obviously, I'd say he's a wee bit, would there be a question over his Linan, his orientation? I think I'd be suspecting there is. But he's also extremely left, and he's pushing this hard, the woke agenda. So his response was that Starmer, a British MP, is over in America demanding Trump put sanctions on Britain, which will put British people, working people, out of jobs. Now, will that wash? If British people's rights are being destroyed and their rights to free speech are being destroyed, would their jobs matter that much? But that's what he came up with. That's all he had to come up with. They must be ripping the lefties. So anyway, we'll see. I don't think Trump will put any tariffs on for now. I think there'll be a bit of pushing and shoving till Trump gets the visit to Britain. Isn't that coming up soon? Big business in Britain. And I think he'll give a speech there about free speech again. And then when he gets that all over, he'll retire back and he'll slap some sanctions on them if the matter isn't resolved in the meantime. I said Starmer will eventually have to go. There never was anything like him. He's a complete traitor, like a complete traitor. Anyway, the other thing I began to wonder in the police, with all this LGBTQ, is there a particular movement within the police, within the British police, for homosexuality? And are the homosexuals getting promoted to a high position? And are they beginning to shove their weight around? That would explain how all these machine gun carrying police surround the creator of Father Ted, a comedian, comedy writer. They don't do comedy, the police, nor the Starmers, nor the Wokes. They don't see the funny side of anything. Could it be that there's a huge homosexual ring in the police? They're out pride marching, so we have them in the guards here too. But could that be what this is about? Are they now doing the thought police, and are they actually arresting him because they don't approve of him? Where is the power? Where is the charge? Imagine trying to prove that charge. He posted in America on an American platform. Now, the funny thing about it is Europe and Britain is bereft. It has no comedy or no tech firms at all. There's no Facebooks or Twitter. There's no equivalent to the American social media. Why is that? It's because Europe and Britain discourages and destroys any creativity. You dare not question them. Now, there was a lady on the Conservative side. She's a Shadow Home Secretary. What's this her name is now? I can't just think of it. But was it her said, we're living in North Korea. We're living in North Korea. Britain is now very similar to North Korea. So this will be one to watch. It will be very interesting from a legal standpoint. I think Graeme Linehan has been released on bail. He has some other charge about giving out to transgenders as well in Britain. We'll see what the story is. Am I leaving out anything now, folks? Oh yes, a big politician in Germany, a big retired judge, just recently retired. A German judge has come out and said that the European Court of Human Rights must be got rid of, that it now is de facto the government. Here in Ireland and in the United Kingdom, the European Court of Rights will block any effort to deport migrants. It blocks them all. They'll always find a way. No migrant, or very few, will be sent back. And he makes the point that they are now acting as the government. So there's pressure on, and you have to admit, I mentioned this a month ago. There's movement on now to get rid of the European Court of Human Rights. It was brought in apparently after the Second World War, where people were being displaced all over Europe, and to try and give some wee bit of help and comfort to them. And now it has grown into this monster of wokeism. So it's a big problem. Had I won in the last election and got my seat, or had we did well, we'd now be lugging the migrants out of here. We'd be chucking them out, and they'd be stopping us. My reaction, my response would have been to get a Navy flotilla and go over and lift them and bring them back to Ireland. Now, someone said before, you're giving out about migrants coming in and you're bringing in the European Court of Human Rights judges. So you're a hypocrite. I don't think so. If we took them and captivated them and brought them over here and held them, they couldn't do their dirty work over in the European Court of Justice. Moreover, we'd put them to work. We'd give them day releases. Anyone renovating a field or reseeding a field, you need someone to collect the stones, and I'd have them out doing that. So that's all I can say. But anyway, folks, have I given you a bit there on 19 minutes? We'll have more on it. It's unbelievable stuff. By the way, GB News is the only real station in Britain that deals with this. And there was a Fine Gael politician, a woman, on RTE about 6 weeks ago, and she said she couldn't understand how the GB News was allowed to broadcast. Doesn't that tell you about Fine Gael? I think that Fine Gael, now I'm going to say Fine Gael, it could include a bit of Fianna Fáil, are suffering from the Stockholm syndrome. There was one time when Fine Gael were down on the IRA, down on Sinn Féin, banning them speaking on the radio, Section 31 of the Broadcasting Act, hard against Sinn Féin and the IRA, which were their military wing. And they were killing people all over the place. So how do Fine Gael politicians now seem to have turned for the same as Sinn Féin stand for, extreme left-wing politics, and getting the like of GB News banned? Could be the Stockholm syndrome. The Stockholm syndrome is where a person is kidnapped, taken prisoner for a long period, and eventually gets out, and they become worse than the people who captivated them. It'd be like if the people who were captivated by the Hamas in Israel on the 7th of October 2023 are still in captivity, some of them, if they turned into Hamas guerrillas. That's the Stockholm syndrome, and it is a syndrome. People break under pressure, and then they start running with them. So Sinn Féin would be lawless and, shoot all around you and bully and kneecap and everything like that. But you wouldn't expect Fine Gael, but Fine Gael are more or less the same. Is there a Stockholm syndrome affecting politicians? I don't know her name. I'm sorry for not having that. Anyway, I think I've helped you along there. This is the story anyway. It's the whole news. It's all over American television. Graeme Linan, he's got a great boost. He should write another comedy sketch. And they lifted him. 5 machine gunners. I'd say every one of them are homosexuals. I'd say they're trying to prove a point. I'd say the gay community have taken over the UK police force. And Starmer is one of them. Now it's wokeism and it's other things as well. There's a lot of homosexual people not into this stuff. But it's been used. Now I think I brought that to you folks. It's getting curiouser and curiouser. Is that what they said? Graeme Linan, he threw a heart attack. He got a genuine blood pressure thing too as well. Anyway, folks, 23 minutes. We'll see you back. Comment underneath. It's unbelievable stuff. We'll see you back. Good luck. Thank you very much. Bye.